Joining us now is Wendell Potter. He's a former health insurance executive turned whistleblower. He was head of public relations for Cigna, one of the nation's largest insurers. He's now a senior fellow on healthcare at the Center for Media and Democracy. Mr. Potter, thanks very much for joining us again tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. And also, I was at Humana for a few years, too.
Which makes it all the more relevant to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say that I was upset. I was sort of shaken up by these industry documents that were made public this weekend. Internal rules that say you can't cover police officers, you can't cover firefighters, don't cover anyone who's going to have a baby. This pre-existing condition system was created by the industry. What was the purpose of it, and how has it worked out for them?
Well, it's worked out great for them. They've been able to avoid paying out billions of dollars in claims over the years because of this system that the industry created. And they did this primarily to be able to avoid anyone who might need health insurance. They've had such a sweet deal over many years by avoiding or not having to accept anyone who applied for coverage who might have had some kind of illness in the past. In fact, there are some professions in the industry that in the past they've actually written "do not quote." So it's something, and in fact, healthcare workers are among those that health insurance companies would rather not have to cover if they had a choice.
What about when somebody already has coverage? Do pre-existing condition clauses factor after somebody's already been granted coverage in order to avoid paying specific claims or in order to drop them?
Absolutely does. And this is in the individual market where someone doesn't have access to health insurance in their workplace. You have to fill out an application, and you are expected to try to remember everything that you can throughout your medical history, throughout your life. If you miss something, if you forget something, then if you do get sick, if you do have medical claims, the insurance company will go back and look at that application, and they will have better memory. They will have better records than you will have memory, and very often they will cancel your coverage, even though you've paid premiums year in and year out, every month on time, even if you had acne or something like that.
Right, when we look at the prospects for reform right now, the idea of getting rid of pre-existing conditions is something that pretty much everyone seems to be on board with, even the health insurance industry. They're willing to let the pre-existing conditions thing go. If you put yourself in the mindset of yourself when you worked back in the industry, or executives who are there now, surveying these reform prospects right now, how are they feeling about what may be happening to their industry?
Well, they would be willing to give up pre-existing conditions as a condition to deny coverage because they see this as a potential bonanza for them. And they've already gotten the president to go along or change his course and agree that everyone should be forced to get coverage. And that would mean that if there's no public option, they would have billions of dollars in new revenue that would come from new policyholders, and for those who can't afford to pay their overpriced premiums, taxpayers' dollars that would go into these companies, and a lot of it would come out on the other end in terms of profits for the shareholders. So it's a sweet deal for them. They have said in the past, by the way, that they'd be willing to give up pre-existing conditions. They said this in congressional testimony back in 1993. It's empty rhetoric, but they would be willing to go along with it, first of all, because I don't think they can avoid it this time, and secondly, in exchange for getting all these new customers, you betcha they'd go along with it.
When I think about my own health insurance coverage and my own family's experience, my friends' experience with health insurance coverage, I have been through a long period of my life when I was uninsured. A lot of people in my family and my friends have been through time when we were uninsured. But I also know a lot of people who have health insurance right now but still feel that we are underinsured, still feel that we're being given unaffordable costs even after paying unaffordable premiums. Do you feel like the sort of new regulations for the industries, including getting rid of pre-existing conditions, but all the other things that are being proposed, would actually make our insurance less bad if we're all going to be required to have it?
No, I think it would make it even more bad. Pre-existing conditions could be eliminated, and I think they should be made illegal a long time ago. But a lot of the legislation would still enable, in fact, it would sanction or enable the companies to continue shifting more and more of the cost of health care to us. The so-called premiums might be more affordable comparatively, but on the other end of that is that they would make us pay more out of our own pocket for coverage. So the goal of making sure that no one has to file for bankruptcy because of medical bills is a pipe dream with the kind of legislation we're seeing right now.
And that is the argument for the public option to compete for the private system.
Exactly.
Wendell Potter, former head of public relations for Cigna, also formerly with Humana. Thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, sir.
Thank you, Rachel.